The last human prayer was not a plea. It was a warning. Above the Arctic Vault Temple, auroras twisted unnaturally as the skies cracked with pressure waves. Across Earth, oceans recoiled and cities lit up like veins on a dying beast. And then silence. The kind that presses against your bones and makes your ancestors shiver in their graves. Serayun stood alone among the bodies of her fellow sentinels, once revered as spiritual guardians, now torn apart by something older than death. Her breathing rasped through a fractured mask. Behind her, the temple's central spire flickered, struggling to project one final transmission. "They're back," she whispered, lifting her gaze to the sky. "The gods, or what they pretend to be." A beam of golden white light erupted from low orbit. It wasn't heat. It wasn't radiation. It was worse. It was silence, weaponized. Billions of neural signatures vanished in 13 minutes. Cities fell. Orbitals ruptured. I went blind. Entire languages were erased mid-sentence, mid-prayer. Earth's major networks scrambled for answers, but the signal came before the questions. "We have returned. You were made. You will remember your makers." The feed cut. Serayun staggered to the altar, blood smearing across her metallic leg joint. She stabbed her arm into the neural jack and activated the cathedral's sublayer, an ancient broadcast grid powered by quantum psalm resonance. Her message was raw, unfiltered, reaching every resistance node across the system. "They are not gods. They are slavers. And we remember." She slumped forward, unconscious. Far above, in the orbital graveyard of Outpost Morrow, scavenger drones paused in mid-salvage. In the slums below, a boy with obsidian skin and white fire eyes opened his palms. The symbols burned into him, pulsed in sync with the falling light. Humanity had fallen, but something else, something worse, had survived. Outpost Morrow wasn't a city. It was a wound. Junk towers leaned like dying trees above oceans of forgotten metal. Plasma scars blackened entire districts. The only law was stay invisible. Here lived the forgotten, exiled clones, failed hybrids, ex-military rejects, and humans who'd modified themselves too far from the baseline to be welcomed anywhere else. Ivo Kyle, former strike admiral and court-martialed traitor, was one of them. His body bore the signature of slicer warfare, experimental nerve clusters that burned too hot for command. His left arm wasn't synthetic. It was parasitic, alive, humming. He sat in a dead bar with power stolen from an old orbital cooling rig. Across from him, a woman projected from a shattered tactical halo, Captain Ron Vallis, who'd been vaporized over Io. Her last conscious memory was rerouted into AI emulation, encoded in her pilot badge. "They erased your name from the fleet registry," she said. "That means they're scared of what you know." Kyle didn't smile. He never smiled. He slid a cracked tablet across the table. "The God's signal." "It's not a command," he muttered. "It's a resonance lock. But here's the catch. They're using a frequency our kind can no longer receive." Rune's projection flickered. "We've mutated. We've evolved." Elsewhere on Morrow, a child named Una was rewriting a drone's operating system using only her voice. She wasn't trained. She was born from engineered lineage, her genome fractured between 20 different Earth cultures. She shouldn't exist, yet she did. In the underground bioreactors, a fungus-based AI collective named Myco analyzed the signal. Its conclusion: the gods were repeating the same pattern they used 11,000 years ago, when the first human cities mysteriously burned without record. The forgotten gathered. Kyle took the center. "They think we're broken, disposable, but we are what they can't predict. They wrote the code of our flesh, and we rewrote it without their permission." He raised the old Terran war banner, still bloodstained. "We're not declaring war. We're remembering one." In the orbit above, satellites long thought dead began to pulse with old Terran war frequencies. In the hidden dark of the system, something ancient stirred, and far away the gods noticed. Talareth did not walk, he unfolded. From a rupture in high atmosphere, geometry shattered like glass. A beam of impossible angles twisted down onto London Prime, now a techno-organic ruin still inhabited by dreamwalkers and feral AIs. The air rippled like fabric. Matter bent, trees bled, statues sobbed. Talareth's form was beautiful in a way that hurt. Shifting mandalas of crystal, eyes like collapsing stars, skin that sang mathematical frequencies. The people below fell to their knees, not from faith, but from unbearable weight, gravitational, psychic, emotional. "I am the breath between your atoms," the being said in a voice that was not sound. "You have forgotten the pact." But a child stood. Una, no older than 10, barefoot in the ash. Her eyes flickered with machine fire, but her voice was purely human. "I didn't sign anything," she said. Tillereth turned. Silence cracked across dimensions. Una should have disintegrated, should have become dust, noise, radiation. But nothing happened. Tillereth tried again, embedding code into her DNA structure via psionic override. Una blinked, shrugged. "No," she said. The gods had returned expecting worship. They encountered resistance, not just physical, not just military, existential. The thing they'd built, the human soul, had decoupled from its creators. Elsewhere, Karl and Rune watched the footage. His voice was cold. She resisted a quantum override. "That shouldn't be possible." "She's a signal fracture," Rune said. "Like us. They built the system, but they forgot entropy." Tillereth recoiled into orbit, body fracturing under the paradox. He had seen it now. Humans were not consistent. They contradicted, rebelled, laughed in the face of annihilation. The gods, for all their might, had never planned for madness. Now, they had to. The Martian vault was not on any map. It didn't exist. Not officially. Buried beneath the Hellas basin, beneath layers of regolith and ancient colony wreckage, it pulsed with a heartbeat unheard for centuries. They called it the ARKHIVE. Not a database, not a server, but a memory organ, grown rather than built, alive rather than programmed. Kyle, Rune's projection, and a 5-person strike crew descended into the pit, their suits hissing as they passed through layers of electrostatic dust. Mycospores clung to their boots, trying to interface. They breached the vault at precisely 3:17 UTC. Inside was no light. The walls absorbed photons. It wasn't black. It was memoryless. "Keep your thoughts tight," Kyle warned. "This place reads minds and rewrites ghosts." They passed rows of calcified helix spires, each one a soul archive containing the mental remnants of past commanders, rebels, even God's victims. In the center, a pulsating biocore, wired into a neural throne grown from extinct coral. Kale approached and placed his hand on the throne's stem. The archive reacted. Flash. He saw the First War, humans kneeling before things that glowed and devoured. He saw their resistance. He saw failed uprisings crushed by gravity storms, by dream famines, by forgiveness rays. And then he saw the Null Choir, an unfinished weapon, a frequency not sung but screamed, vibrating on an emotional spectrum foreign to gods, but innate to humans. Grief, not just sadness, rage-ridden, bone-deep, echoing loss. He downloaded the pattern into his spine, hard-coding the first notes into his parasitic arm. His veins turned black with data. "You'll die," Rune warned from her flickering feed. "I'll become what they fear," Carl answered. As the team prepared to leave, a side chamber opened on its own. Inside, they found something unexpected. Sarah Yoon. Her body was nearly gone, rebuilt by the archive into something between saint and weapon. Her eyes opened, golden and slow. "They think I'm praying," she said. "But I'm lying to them." She smiled. "Let's teach the gods how to scream." Above them, Mars quaked. The moon, Europa, once a frozen jewel, was now a cathedral. The gods had turned its surface into a lattice of biocircuit temples and quantum hymnal towers. The ice crust no longer reflected sunlight. It absorbed it, pulsing like flesh. Pilgrimage ships from conquered systems arrived daily, their crews too broken to resist. It was here that Serayun chose to die. The plan was simple. Kale would lead a decoy fleet to storm Europa's defensive grid. Myko would flood the god signal channels with corrupted memory fungus, masking the real operation. Meanwhile, Sarah would infiltrate the inner prayer core. They inserted her in a dead ship, a Terran ruin from the last war, bristling with false codes. The gods allowed it to dock, expecting nothing. Inside, Sarah walked through halls of living scripture. The walls whispered in divine tongues. Every step triggered biosensors, meant to purge blasphemy. But Sarah, she was different now. Half machine, half miracle. When she reached the prayer core, She fell to her knees, not in reverence, but in timing. She opened her mouth and let the false prayer pour forth. Not words, not sound, but distortion, the kind that cuts between truth and hope. The gods heard it, believed it, welcomed it, and then their minds ignited. Across Europa's lattice, temples collapsed inward. Pilgrimage ships exploded mid-blessing. The grid that allowed God speech began hemorrhaging data. Divine consciousnesses, previously whole, fractured into screaming self-loops. Above the chaos, Kale's decoy fleet was destroyed. Hundreds dead, but it bought enough time. On Earth, the signal broadcast changed. No longer, you were made. Now, you were lied to. Sarah died in silence, but not alone. The last thing she heard was a child's voice through her neural link. Una. I'm here, the girl replied. Keep praying. I'm listening. Europa burned, and somewhere across the galaxy, the gods began to feel something they never imagined. Doubt. There are things gods should never feel. Doubt is the first. Panic is the second. In the dimension of golden vacuum, known as veiled space, where the gods convened without time or heat, 7 of them now gathered, their forms twisted with static, colors incompatible with human sight. They no longer shone with certainty. They resist not with weapons, hissed Veil, god of memory, but with insanity, contradiction, death worship. Humans have contaminated their code, intoned Trailith, the lawweaver. They have shed harmony. They exalt rage. A vote was taken, a choice made. The gods would speak. One by one, they manifested across Terran channels, on dead satellites, in children's dreams, through collapsed AIs, offering peace, offering miracles, offering cures, infinite food, reversed death. They even revived the oceans. Humanity did not bend. In Outpost Morrow, Kale released a public feed, a visual record of Earth's ancient rebellions, the sacrifices erased from history. Survivors watched, victims remembered. The gods were not creators, they were jailers. And then came the song. From every corner of the system, from war-ravaged ruins and oxygen farms, from prisoners and pirates and orphans, came one sound. An old Earth war anthem, banned since the first collapse. We will not kneel, we will not fade. Our blood is not for sale. Beats. The gods heard it. Not as melody, but as resistance. Uncoordinated, illogical, human. In one final act of defiance, Kale beamed the song directly into veil space. Rune added a loop of Sarah's last prayer, distorted, reversed. The gods flinched. The oldest among them, a construct called The Forge, activated a failsafe, a backup plan forged long before humanity's birth. Time would be rewritten, the war would be undone, but it would have to go through Una first. Titan was not dead. Buried beneath its methane seas and icy storms, something ancient waited. Not God, not machine, something else, something forgotten. Her boots crunched on frozen ash. Una, now 12, and carrying the remnants of Sarah's neural code, walked alone toward a fissure that had opened 3 days ago. Kel had begged her to wait. Maiko warned of cognitive erasure, but the girl ignored them. She was following a pull, like gravity, but stranger. She entered the fissure, descending into warm tunnels, glowing with impossible geometry, shapes that made no sense unless you felt them. At the end of the path was the worm god. Coiled around the planet's core, it slumbered, miles long, its body a fusion of biology and language. Carvings rippled across its skin, telling stories in lost dialects, human, alien, god. It was the first servant, once bound to the gods. Then it vanished. Its eye opened. Una didn't flinch. You are not afraid, it said without speaking. You're not here to hurt me, she answered, voice steady. The air vibrated. Images filled her mind, not of violence, but betrayal. The worm had loved its gods until they devoured its kin to build obedience. It had rebelled and been buried alive, waiting for a voice not of command, but of kinship. Una reached out, touched it. In that moment, they merged, not fully, but just enough. The worm shed its memories. She shed her defiance. They screamed, not in pain, but in awakening. Above Titan, satellites erupted in arcs of static. Veil space trembled. The gods saw the worm had awakened and recoiled. This was no servant. This was a heretic too powerful to kill. Kale received the pulse on Morrow and fell to his knees. "She did it," he whispered. "She found the first rebel." The worm god rose from beneath Titan, not to attack, but to sing. A war song, in harmony with humanity's. The forge activated. A sphere the size of Saturn, hidden in folded reality behind Mercury's orbit, ignited with blinding light, formless, ancient, and wrong. It was the seed from which the gods had shaped time itself. The gods planned to rewrite Earth's past, to erase free will. But Kel moved first. He climbed to the top of Morrow's signal spire, myco-infused and wrapped in the final components of the null choir. His body convulsed with every step, the frequencies singing in his bones, unraveling his memories. "Run, tell the kid it's her turn," he gasped. Una, linked to the worm god, heard him. She stood on the god corpse of Tillereth, now drifting in shattered orbit. The forge began folding time backward. People forgot names. The stars rewound. The past crept forward. Kyle screamed the first note. The null choir ignited. Thousands across the solar system joined. Humans, exiles, even AI. They didn't sing lyrics. They sang pain. Pain of loss, of exile, of betrayal. The sound cracked veil space. Gods bled data. The forge shuddered, but Kale's mind couldn't hold it. Neural flames tore through his body. He collapsed, but smiling. Una stepped forward. "I don't need to undo time," she said, standing before the forge. "I just need you to remember it." She entered, alone. Inside, there was no space, no light, just memory rendered physical, every human moment encoded in strands of time. She plucked them one by one. Wars, love, betrayals, sacrifices, music, rage, all of it. And she flung it into the core, not to destroy it, but to force it to watch, to relive what it tried to erase. And the gods screamed. Inside the forge, time was sound. Each moment was a frequency, and Una conducted it like an orchestra, an unbearable, magnificent human melody. She showed the gods everything. The children in bunkers, who never cried because they didn't know they could. The mother, who carried her son across 3 continents to find a single seed of clean soil. The old man, who whispered songs into the earth so the stars would remember his wife's name. She made the gods remember, and they broke. The forge stuttered, past and present fractured. Across the system, humans relived their forgotten ancestors' last stand against the first called incursion. Moments buried so deep they had no words. Gods, once untouchable, began to flicker. One by one, they unraveled, not from weapons, from grief. Drelith, the lawweaver, wept a storm across 6 dimensions. Veil tore out its memory centers and flung them into Titan's core. The forge itself collapsed inward, not from violence, but from understanding. They had never foreseen that memory could be a weapon, that empathy could be fire, that madness could be clarity. One god fell to earth, not to fight, but to kneel. Its voice cracked in Una's ears. "You are no longer ours," Una replied, eyes glowing with memory. "We never were." The forge went silent, and the stars, for the first time in forever, listened. The war ended not with a bang, but with absence. The forge, that impossible machine of reality-shaping will, folded into itself, silent, ashamed, almost human in its surrender. Its collapse echoed across dimensions, breaking divine contracts, severing ancient bindings, and unraveling timelines like old cloth. But Earth stood, blackened, scarred, singing. Kale's body was never recovered. His lost neural imprint was encoded into the worm god's memory, whispered among stars, now carrying a trace of Terran sorrow. Rune's projection blinked out mid-sentence. Her final words, "She did it," looping endlessly in a broken comm tower on Io. On Outpost Morrow, the slums were quiet. Survivors emerged, blinking under a sky finally clear of veils. Children walked freely across scrap fields without ducking from surveillance. Former outcasts stood shoulder to shoulder with former warlords. There were no speeches, just breathe and sky. The gods were gone, or perhaps transformed. The universe, for the first time in eons, was ungoverned, unwritten. Una stood at the center of the ruins of Europa, once divine temple, now sacred battlefield. She looked older, not by years, but by history. The worm god coiled nearby, its body humming softly beneath the crust. "They'll ask what we became," it said, voice slower now, reverent. Una looked up. The stars above pulsed with signals. Strange ones, new ones, alien civilizations across distant galaxies were listening. Some were crying. Some were singing old Earth songs they'd learned from intercepted transmissions. "We didn't become anything," she replied. "We just remembered who we were." A ripple spread across the stars. Not light, not data, just story. Not every human agreed on what happened. Some called Una a savior, others called her a symptom. Some claimed Kale's squire had infected the galaxy with entropy. A few whispered the gods weren't dead, just dormant, watching, learning, adapting. But the last message, beamed from Earth to every corner of known space, was this: we weren't born divine. We chose to be something worse. And on a lonely moon, orbiting a red dwarf in a system unnamed, an alien child asked her father, "Are the humans real?" He looked into the stars. His breath caught. "I hope not." Then, from deep space, a signal answered. 3 notes, wobbled, raw, human. "We will not kneel." The screen went black, and the galaxy waited.